My name is James Carter, and if anyone finds this diary, I beg you to believe what I am about to reveal. I know it sounds impossible, but I have seen things no one should ever see. Things that defy everything we know about the world. The USS Eldridge was eerily silent on the morning of October 28, 1943. The gray sky reflected off the still water, as if even the ocean was waiting for something terrible to happen. There was a heaviness in the air, a metallic scent, like ozone after a storm. I could feel the electricity on my skin, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. The officers gave us little explanation, just direct orders. Stay in position, don't ask questions, and above all, do not leave your post once the experiment begins. The clock read 9 o'clock when the machines powered on. At first, there was only a faint hum, barely perceptible. But within seconds, it grew into a deafening roar of vibration that tightened my chest, as if something was pulling the air around me. The ship's hull began to glow with a pulsating green light, alive, unnatural. I tried to speak to McAllister, the engineer beside me, but no sound came out. That's when I saw the first signs that something was terribly wrong. The edges of the ship started to distort, like a mirage in the desert. The air around us shimmered, and then reality itself seemed to unravel. The green light became blinding. I blinked, shielding my eyes, and when I opened them again, I realized something had changed. The ocean was no longer the same. The horizon seemed displaced, as if we had been pulled into a place that did not exist. But the worst was yet to come. Screams echoed across the deck. I turned to my left and saw one of the crewmen, Murphy, with half of his body fused into the metal floor of the ship. He tried to scream, but his mouth twisted in an impossible way, as if his flesh no longer knew how to exist in this space. Other sailors thrashed around, some with expressions of pure horror as their bodies dissolved and reappeared in different positions, as if time and space had lost all meaning. That's when I saw it. In the green fog surrounding us, a shadow moved. It wasn't a man nor a crew member, but something that did not belong to this world. It had no face, only emptiness where its eyes should have been. And somehow, I knew it was looking directly at me. My body froze. My heart pounded against my ribs like a war drum. I tried to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The thing in the fog took a step forward, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the cold deck, my head throbbing and my vision blurry. The smell of metal and burnt remnants still lingered in the air, and the green fog was slowly dissipating. But something was wrong. The sea was completely still, as if the entire world had paused. I tried to get up, but an unusual weight on my body stopped me. I looked at my hands, feeling a strange rigidity. My skin seemed thicker, and something pulsed beneath it, as if I were transforming into something I shouldn't be. Panic began to take over me. It was then that I saw McAllister lying beside me. He was no longer in his uniform, but in something darker, something distorted, as if his flesh had been pulled out of his skin. His face was covered by a kind of mist, as if he were dissolving into another place, another time. His eyes met mine, but there was no humanity left in him. He was an entity, a reflection of something that should have been left behind. "James, don't look," he murmured, but his voice didn't sound like his. It was a distorted whisper, a warning coming from a place where words couldn't reach. I tried to run, but my body wouldn't obey. Fear paralyzed me, and everything around me began to spin, as if time itself were folding over itself. I wasn't in the same place anymore. The Eldridge didn't seem the same. The ship was now in ruins, its hull deformed, as if it had been corroded by something beyond human comprehension. I saw parts of the deck moving, but not as if they were alive, more like they were being pulled into another dimension, one where gravity and space meant nothing. A shadow materialized in front of me, emerging from the fog still crawling across the deck. It was the same faceless figure, the thing that had been watching me earlier. It didn't move physically, but its presence filled the air around me, as if it were touching my mind directly, invading my thoughts, making it hard to breathe. Its voice, if it could be called that, echoed in my mind, like an unbearable whisper. You've seen what you shouldn't have. Now, you belong to this place. It was at that moment that I realized the terrible truth. The experiment hadn't brought us back. Not in the way we thought. The Eldridge was trapped in a limbo, a layer of reality where time and space intertwined grotesquely. And I was doomed to live within that distortion. McAllister, or whatever was left of him, moved closer to me, his empty eyes fixed on me. You need to understand, you'll never leave here. The fog began to thicken around us again, and the sensation that something was watching us, something beyond human understanding, intensified. I tried to scream, but my voice was swallowed by the growing darkness. I knew that somehow the ship was becoming a part of me and I of it. The faceless entity approached closer, and the terror rooted itself in my being like something definitive, like a sentence. And then something pulled me into the darkness. The pull was violent, an indescribable force dragging me into the dense darkness. I felt my flesh snap, my bones contorting as if they were being reconfigured. It was like being torn apart and reconstructed, but without end, an endless transformation. The sound of my own breathing was muffled, as if my body no longer belonged to me. When my eyes finally opened, I realized I was no longer on the ship, nor in the world I knew. The space was incomprehensible, a mix of distortions and distant echoes of something that once was real. There was no ground, no sky, not even a horizon line. What I saw were only fragments of broken memories, like pieces of a shattered reality, floating in an unfathomable void. Amidst this chaos, a presence was watching me. It wasn't something I could see directly, but I felt it deeply, as if it were pressing on my mind, invading my most intimate thoughts. It was the entity, the force that had taken the Eldridge and now my body. It was the very essence of everything that should have been forgotten. You don't understand. The voice didn't come from anywhere in particular, but invaded my mind with chilling clarity. This place, this reality, you were the intruders. The experiment wasn't just a mistake, it was an opening. Suddenly, a vision formed before me. It was McAllister, but he no longer looked disfigured as before. He looked like me, the same empty expression, the same lifeless eyes. But something else was there. He moved closer, his presence denser, more oppressive than ever. "You can't leave," he said, his voice louder, more penetrating than the entities. "We're trapped here, together." I tried to move away, but there was nowhere to run. The void, the darkness, everything was closing in around me. It was a prison with no walls, an endless prison. Then what are we supposed to do? I asked, my voice broken, full of desperation. How do we break this? He smiled, but it was an empty smile, a smile of resignation. There is no breaking, only acceptance. I fell to my knees, powerless, as the truth began to infiltrate my being. The Eldridge, the distortion, the experiment, it was all part of something greater, something I could not comprehend, something that defied human logic and reason. The ship was not trapped in time. It was trapped in space. And now I was trapped in it. As the entity's presence closed in, a cold sensation took over my being. I knew the end was near, but it was not the end of an ordinary life. It was the end of something deeper, something immortal. You will understand, James. In the end, everyone will understand. And as the words dissolved, the void swallowed me. There was no more battle, no more escape. I was lost. But somehow, I knew this was not the end, but only the beginning of something much larger, something beyond death, beyond life, something eternal.